Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. You wanted it, you got it, and here it is. The podcast that dives into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters and get to the bottom of the shit we want to know. We do that with a plethora of legendary guests, and who better than a legend himself? The hottest guy interviewing the coolest guest. That's your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. Rex with 3 X's, ladies, if you get my drift. You also may know me as the man with the golden voice and the velvet tongue. Ladies, again. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the hair metal high priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Take one look at the quaff, ladies and gentlemen. It is undeniable that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked several grams. Got 1 million fans. Mr. Wop Bop Loo Bop Wop Bang Bang. Shazam. A hot damn. Diddly 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 bop bop bow. Woo! Take a look, folks. This is, of course, the No Frills podcast. You don't get no frills because I give you plenty of thrills. There's no cute intro. There's no theme song to open my show. Nothing. Although you will get some killer product placement, because if you want the locks that rock, go out and get you some and spray responsibly. We already got ozone problems. Let me give myself a look here before we get a guest in here. And of course, you know, we always get the best guests. Coming to you as always from the Den of Sin, the Pink Pussycat Lounge. You see all my various memorabilia collected from over the years. And of course, right now, I'm fronting several bands with my foot in and out of several. Really not able to make up my mind, but Love Sword is my main priority, folks. If you'd like to play with me in Love Sword, please, I implore you. If you're virtuoso level or above and you want to be part of the backing band behind the second greatest front man behind my pops, David Lee Roth Sr., hit me up. Y'all know what to do. Don't be shy. I'll audition anybody out there. And of course, we got ourselves a good guest tonight. Going to get ourselves another legend in here. That way we'll have, well, by my estimations, 2 legends. Let me give myself a swig to wet the pipes a little. Time to give myself another look. Not because I need to, because I like to. Man. While we're waiting for our guest here, let me also tell my guest that I will be continuing to bring you the finest guests in many different areas of the entertainment and sports world. So do stay tuned, because as I send my invite out to my guest again, you know, rock stars, what are you going to do? I mean, I'm one too, late for everything, but, you know, I also am the hardest working man in show business, so duh, it makes sense. I mean, come on, people. I am a busy man, and when I ain't busy, I'm getting busy. So what can you do? What can you do? But this guy that we're having in here tonight, I'm pretty excited about, because you know, I do consider him a legend. Big time. And he's certainly in a, well, I guess I can say it. He's certainly in a legendary band. They had quite a bit of a hiatus, which took them out of the game for a little while. But we'll get to the bottom of all that, because he's ready to come in right now. So let's get him in here. Check one. Welcome to the Pod Scum. Hey, there he is. Look at that.
You see me.
Isn't technology great that we can make this kind of shit happen? Although it's making people so fucking lazy and inattentive, I don't know if it is always a good thing. And you poor guys in the music business can't make a goddamn dime anymore. I feel for you guys the most. I mean, holy shit. I mean,
yeah.
Well, this is, of course, the legendary, and I always say that introduce a lot of my guests that way, because I only like to rub elbows with the legend, SASHA HORN from among other things, I think a lot of the metal community right now would know you as the drummer for EXHORDER.
True, this is true, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. You've been drumming for a long time. Drumming is something that's pretty prevalent in your family. You know, did I read somewhere you're like a third generation? Your grandpa, your dad, everybody's a percussionist, huh?
You have done your homework.
I have. I've tried.
My grandfather was a drummer.
Yeah.
The big band swing jazz era. My father still plays. He did his time in some touring rock bands. He toured a bit, and I just came up immersed in that. I mean, surrounded by instruments. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
Soak that all up and take it in and do.
And what kid doesn't want? And what kid doesn't want to bang on shit? You know, I mean.
Exactly.
That's got to be one of the more enticing. I imagine it probably if they checked out the demographic on what instrument kids gravitate to initially. I bet a lot of kids just love drums. You know,
it started with the pots and the
pots and pans. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is way more annoying than if you had an actual drum set. So
yeah.
Well,
I don't know if you can tell by the beautiful blonde coif, but I am second generation frontman. My father is David Lee Roth Sr.
Spitting image. I was gonna say that.
Oh, I figured you were. I could tell right off the bat as soon as your face appeared. I'm like, here's a guy that's gonna get it right off the bat. He knows his rock and roll lineage. You know.
Oh yeah, that's an honor and a privilege to be sitting here with you.
Wow. A band like when I look at a guy like you, and then I look at a band like Melakesh, I don't see the fit. Were you really that close to joining those guys?
So I was, what was that, like 2010 or 2011?
You look like too nice of a guy. Those guys look like some evil, crazy bastards. I don't know. I mean,
you know how it goes. I mean, you meet plenty of, especially with doing this. I mean, the guys who the most menacing are teddy bear sweethearts. And those guys treated me like family from the get-go, and they are sweethearts. And I did join the band. I was ushered in officially. It was a little bit of a weird time. I had a tangle with in that I had, oh God, what was the time? I'm like forgetting. I did so many things at once. I'm forgetting what I was doing at the time. I went over to Germany where they were practicing at the time, and started doing some writing for the next album as well as rehearsing older material. I came back to the States. It was going to be a thing that I'm used to now, where you're playing with other people in other countries. You go back and forth.
Right.
I had at the time I had some family issues come up that kind of paralyzed me from doing anything. I had to put my career on pause. And those guys were, understanding. It was stressful. It was a bit of a setback for them, but when family stuff happens, you gotta run with it and make sure before you can launch anything else and take off and do other things. So that's what happened with that. It was a short-lived career with them, but I feel blessed to have had that time to sit behind the kit for them. It was an amazing experience for as little time as it was.
And you also did a year stint with Forbidden.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, and I gotta say, all these bands that I've played with, I mean, as our dreams come true, man. I can't, and I don't take it for granted. I'm humbled by it still. The Forbidden thing was, as you probably saw in some of your deep research, they held an online contest for their next drummer, to find their next drummer. And I wasn't even aware of it. I had a friend shoot me a link to everything that was happening. I was like, oh my God. Like, I used to sit in my bedroom, back in the Forbidden Evil Twisted and Deformed days, air drumming these tunes, dreaming that maybe someday I'd get the call.
Right, sure.
So, I mean, that was pretty much exactly a dream come true. And I mean, I forget if it was 100, 200 drummers. I don't remember the amount of drummers that went in on it, because it was open to the entire world. It was a video contest, and I got in on it, and it was like a game show. They narrowed it down, okay, these drummers made the cut, then these drummers made the cut. And I think it was like the final 10 drummers that made it through all the phases of this competition. Were flown down to Oakland to the Forbidden practice space where they did the in-person audition. And days later, I got the call that I got it. And I was like, I mean, it was like one of those hovering above your spirit leaves your body. Right. I mean, it felt otherworldly. I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. So yeah, so I got in on that. I started practicing with those guys. Craig and I started really doing a lot of writing for the next album, and we had like half of it written. We played some shows in California. We did a festival in Santiago, Chile. I believe it's called the Metal Fest. It's one of their big ones they do every year. And shortly thereafter, we had all the big fests confirmed coming up. And Russ, the singer, he had some personal issues, family issues, that he had to deal with that, you know, they were far more important than going and playing Wacken or doing all these. I mean, I was heartbroken, but like, I mean, the guy needed to get his shit together and deal with family stuff. And that's how that went down. I mean, it was, like I said, it was heartbreaking. So I was like, oh my God, I at least wanted to record an album with them.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it funny when you look around in that room? Do you remember any of the other guys that were there gunning for that job? Or was it a face of unknowns, or did you recognize anybody?
Well, there was, okay, so more like names at that time, like the bands they came from. And if I remember at some point during the conversation, I might just like totally interrupt. I am forgetting now. I do know that there were known players from known bands.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but I'd say like half or more were bands. I was like, oh shit, to the point where I was like, oh my God, I'm going up against this guy. Like, that was a humbling experience for me.
Sure.
I'm just happy to be here. If I don't make it, look how far I got.
Right.
You know?
Well, as somebody that grew up listening to a lot of thrash, I mean, you know, they may not have been perceived as one of the top tier, you know, in your upper echelon, but they were certainly in the thrash circle, very highly regarded band, Forbidden.
Especially, you know, talking about the Bay Area scene, like you couldn't not put them in that if you want to narrow it down to the Bay Area scene, you know. So God, I got to meet Paul Bostaff and you know, I met, you know, Gene Hoglan and I mean, because those guys played with Forbidden too. Obviously, and it was like, yeah, man, it was amazing. And Craig and I to this day are still very close. When EXHORDER goes through, you know, Cali, in the San Francisco area, Craig always comes out and hangs out. And every time I'm there, like, I mean, we used to just, him and the family, we, you know, get together and eat lunch. I mean, he became like a big brother figure to me, you know. So it's all good, you know, all's well that ends well.
So 2019, More in the Southern Skies is your first actual release with EXHORDER, but they had very well publicized, had a very, very long hiatus where they had a lot of inactivity. And during that time, I don't think it's any secret to anybody, during a lot of those inactive years, Pantera, a little known band called Pantera, became very, very huge and have been crucified in some metal circles as stealing a sound that EXHORDER originally created. Do you think that's an accurate assessment at all? And where do you stand on that whole issue of EXHORDER being touted as the creators of groove metal, new metal, whatever the hell you want to call it? There's so many genres nowadays, it makes you want to blow your brains out. So, I mean,
it's a tongue twister just trying to like just put it drives me insane. Man, you know, being in the EXHORDER camp now, like deep within it, I've heard so many stories, and you know, a lot of them are personal to like Kyle and the other guys that have, you know, been original members. It's like some of them are like personal stories that I won't talk about, but
understandable.
It's like there's some truth to that. I mean, it's no coincidence that, you know, they hung out as childhood friends and had these bands going, and that like they kind of mirrored each other in some respects. I don't, to say it's stealing, like that puts a negative kind of vibe on it, you know, it kind of cloud over the whole thing. It's, I mean, when you're kids and you're playing in bands and you're with each other all the time, shit's gonna rub off, whether you like it or not. I'm gonna run with that because, like I said, I don't want to say stealing, but that history is real. I mean, there's a thick intertwining of those fabrics, you know. Absolutely, man. It's like, I mean, they were New Orleans scene family at some point, you know. It was, you know,
as a musician yourself with an ear for music, though, are you able to differentiate, or is the sound almost too similar for Pantera to be able to escape that claim? Or can you yourself hear differences stylistically, or does it seem too much of an obvious ripoff to you? I mean, I hear two different bands when I listen, certainly.
Yeah, and it's not to me like there's no blatant ripoff there, but there are similarities. I mean, And it also, in the kind of way that you can say, like, bands that came from a certain area, like Bay Area bands. I mean, there's always like a line that you can run through it that, that's relative or, connects everything. I wouldn't say blatant ripoff, but I would say that there's an obvious influence there. And yeah, definitely. I can hear that. And I hear it back when I was a kid and I used to hear about the whole Pantera EXHORDER thing. Like I wasn't shocked to hear that. It's pretty obvious.
When you see now, and I'm sure it'll still be very topical by the time I get your episode up. Since we're on that topic, where do you stand in the whole Pantera reunion? Do you like what they're doing? Do you like the players that they went out and got to take Vinny and Dime's place?
Honestly, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, "What? Are you living in a cave?" I know that they're back out there doing it. I honestly, for lack of paying attention lately to current events, am not exactly sure who's even on board in that lineup right now.
Okay, so as of right now, it is to be Charlie Benante, drummer of Anthrax, and it is to be Zakk Wylde taking Dime's spot.
Interesting. Okay, so so the Zakk Wylde thing sounds familiar. I didn't hear about Charlie. Honestly, I mean, right off the cuff, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got haters out there. I'm not hating on that at all. In fact, I would love to hear that. I'm all about.
And they do seem to have the blessing of the brothers' estate and the family and everything. So that seems to be pushing things forward. A lot of the criticism on social media seems to be either saying to not call it Pantera, which I don't know what they're going to truck it out as and actually call it if it's, the guys doing Pantera. And then also, you get your people who are saying that this is some kind of a cash grab for Phil and Rex, and they're still kind of hanging on to the Pantera name and, kind of squeezing it for a little bit more. So but you're always going to have detractors, though. As you said earlier, someone's always going to be pissed off about this.
I mean, even if it was a cash grab, I mean, we as musicians, like, I don't know, how much those guys are worth, but I have a feeling that they don't need to go out and do that to make dinner tomorrow night or feed their family.
Sure.
But, I mean, if it's a cash grab, and that's what we do. This is our job. And if it's a cash grab for them, but they can fucking go out there and kill it and the fans want it and they want to continue doing business with that, what's the harm in that? I mean, that's, you product to people who want it.
Well, it's almost like, how dare you make a living? I mean, that just doesn't seem to hold any weight when you call it a cash grab. All of a sudden now you guys aren't entitled to make money. And obviously right now in the music business, that very thing is very difficult to do as it happens to stand right now.
Totally is. I mean, I don't know if that makes me look like an asshole or sound bad, but if I were in that position, I mean, if I knew if EXHORDER wasn't happening anymore, and then 5 years down the line, we got offered a lot of money to go do something, why wouldn't I? I would do if I need the money. I mean, I can go off on a tangent, but I mean, I love what I do. It's what I do. It's my work and my joy and my passion, and it's everything. So for me, it's not a cash grab.
Are we currently right now? It's very difficult sometimes to get concrete answers on the internet, but as of right now, the solid permanent lineup right now of EXHORDER, does it include ex-Cannibal Corpse guitarist Pat O'Brien?
Pat is completely down with this.
Okay,
we are still, I guess we haven't come out and said Pat's, it's official 100%. I mean, Pat kind of, dipped out for a while because he had going on what he had going on. I can tell you that he is excited to do everything that we, prospective opportunities. He, as a unit, we get along so well, man. This is the missing component that we've been waiting for and wanting for a long time now. He is humble, down to earth, incredible player, and he already feels like family to us. And he wants to be a part of everything we're doing. So you can kind of do the math there with that. He's an incredible musician, sweet dude.
Well, obviously, it has been well documented, that and where the problem stemmed from, is in his own health record or whatever. But he obviously was going through a difficult period. First and foremost, I think the metal community certainly wants to see him come out the other side of it. Does he seem like he's wrestling with anything right now, or does he seem like he's past whatever personal obstacles he had?
He is solid as a rock, man, or solid.
So that's good news.
Metal.
Yeah.
Super solid, super focused. According to him too, like the straightest, path, and he's walking that. And you're gonna have to edit this. My tongue's in knots. Most focused he's ever been, and I mean, him when he comes in the room, you can tell that straight off the bat. Like, I mean, like I said before, I'm humbled by every opportunity I get. I'm a little kid in this game. When I first got to meet him, when he walked in, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna play with Pat O'Brien. This is amazing. And I mean, like, the vibe right off the bat is that he's fucking solid as a rock, dude.
He certainly for fans out there in the PodScum audience that have been living under a fucking rock, he obviously has quite a musical resume on some pretty damn heavy Cannibal Corpse albums, so he certainly got the pedigree and the credentials, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not like we had no doubt that he would come in and kill it the first time we got together with him. I mean, it's exactly the situation you'd think when you bring in someone like that. And the only I mean, like I say, we knew it wasn't a matter of can he play this or remember the parts, blah, blah, blah. It was, how is our chemistry going to work together? Because that's been obviously, and that's no secret, that the reason that EXHORDER, has come and gone and tried and failed before is because there wasn't that feeling of unity and family within the band that we have now. Of any band I've ever been at, I've never felt it like this before. This is the moment I've been waiting for in terms of who I surround myself with, who I write music with, who I go on with. It's got to be a family unit, man.
Right. Right on. So do you feel like going forward that this is going to be a solid, stable EXHORDER lineup? Because I don't want to say I've gone to your Wikipedia page and seen a laundry list of X members, as there have been on a lot of band pages, but it is difficult, obviously, to kind of coexist with people. Does this feel like a good, solid, permanent lineup for the foreseeable future?
110%, absolutely.
Okay, so I think fans will definitely be happy about that. And hell, I mean, you're getting a guy who's, I mean, when Pat O'Brien gets the job, is he somebody that you guys audition, or is he somebody that just comes to you and expresses interest and just boom, he has the job because of his That
was kind of like what I meant by, like, we had no doubt that he could come in and that we knew he'd walk in the room, plug in and kill it. And have it down. It wasn't like your typical like audition situation, at all. Like I said, it was more, our main concern was, whoever steps into this role, we want to be able to be on the road with like no drama, straight up people like us that are very level-headed. And that was more of what it was. So in that sense, it wasn't a typical audition kind of thing. It was just we hope that chemistry-wise this works out, and it couldn't be a more beautiful thing right now. It's awesome.
As a guy with drumming in his blood, and it comes from a family of drummer, fucking settle this once and for all. You got a Mount Rushmore of drummers up there. Who are the four faces that are up there to you?
Oh man, I kind of knew you were gonna hit me with this. That's okay. I'm just gonna oh my God, I listened to.
I think you have an answer to this, Sasha. I think you have a very definitive answer to this, and I think you're gonna find that you probably have had these names probably for a long time. I imagine that there's guys that are very important to you as a player.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's not that I haven't had any names. I think it's that as you get older, you collect more favorites, and then when you throw it down, you're like, oh, this is the fucking worst. So off from the gut, I'll say, well, growing up, Stuart Copeland from the Police, very influential. My father was a huge fan, and I was surrounded by Police albums, and I got into that probably like one or two, and it just. I still to this day, his approach is amazing. John Stanier from Helmet, was a huge influence on me when they came out. I often go for the less is more approach that drummers that my drummers that I had idolized rather. God, who else? I'm big into jazz too, man. I mean, like Art Blakey, and I mean those guys were punk rock without ever being called punk rock. Right, you know what I mean? Just the attitude, improv, and
I like the fact that you're giving answers like that, because the standard thing is to come on and say your John Bonhams or your Ginger Bakers or your big heavy hitters or whatever. But, it is, a lot of it is personal preference. And like, I'm meaning it more from like who's on like your Mount Rushmore, not just the Mount Rushmore of drummers, I mean.
Or yeah, like I figured you meant like the drummers that my life. I mean, I think it's because I grew up more punk rock before metal. I mean, my dad, would throw me Clash albums and Wire albums when I was not even in kindergarten yet. So I kind of came up from that less is more raw, dirty, gritty style. It like pocket playing, but still like with so much raw energy and feel to it, I'm still searching for my fourth drummer.
I know you're stalling, Sasha. I know you're stalling. I know you are. I can tell. This is a tough question. And sometimes I do have a tendency to put people on the spot. I've got other stuff here written down in store for you, man. So, I've already made you squirm once already, man. So, I'm feeling for you on the other end, because these questions are tough. I've had them posed to me as well. I posed them to other people. If you took away the big four, who would you put as the big four? Who would you put? Comparison questions are certainly tough. They are.
But I mean, I love that you're keeping it interesting, and I very well that I was going to get thrown for these, so forward to it. I right off the top of my head, I'll say Eric Spicer from Naked Raygun, which is a legendary Chicago punk rock band. And it's funny because people might go and listen to these drummers and not really get it. Why would I cite them as influences? It's not about technical playing; it's about feel for me.
Right.
And they have the know-how, but yeah, so like obviously they didn't play the click tracks, and it's not, they know how to throw the train just a little bit off its tracks, but just to get a fucking rise out of you. Yeah. But there's never a derailment. You know what I mean? And you can taste it. I love that. That.
When you see a guy like when you see a guy who's not as technically gifted, and he takes he's got such a larger than life persona, but takes such a whipping as far as his playing goes, like Lars from Metallica. How do you assess his playing? Because he's a guy that's very polarizing when people have an opinion about his drumming.
True. That's a good question to ask somebody, especially a drummer. I always was kind of in the camp of like, early on, he was impressive. I mean, you go back and listen to those albums and what he was doing, especially for the time. I'm like, and when I was a kid, we were like, wow, this is fucking amazing. I feel like, I don't want to, it sounds bad, but maybe at some point you just kind of don't start reaching for the stars anymore with your playing. Maybe he didn't practice the way that he used to. Maybe he was just kind of on autopilot. Not to say anything that he does is bad at all. I mean, he's a great drummer. And I mean, but then the bar for playing got raised in it all the time. I mean, listen to death metal now, from death metal and like technical. I mean, it's like it's insane. It's insanely cool, but like you can't always expect someone from an old school player to just like do that. You know what I mean? Like the groundwork for so many things. I think he's got to get credit where credit's due. And honestly, I haven't put the last Metallica record under a microscope or anything, even though, people were like, oh, this is amazing. I didn't do that. So to comment on his current style of playing or where he's at, can't really talk too much about that.
So as a player yourself who plays in what people would certainly categorize as an extreme metal band, do you think that playing fast and heavy, that it can get to a point where it doesn't become as musical to the ear? You look at these bands that really play extreme, lots of beats, lots of what a lot of people call Cookie Monster vocals, just extreme, pushing the envelope. Can it get to a point where it becomes too much and it just isn't pleasing to the ear, where like it's too heavy?
Absolutely. And it's funny, we talk about this too. I talk about it with the EXHORDER guys a lot too. As we're writing our next album, and we're actually at the point where we have so much material we're going through and picking and choosing. But it's so more on what you're saying, like these hyper intense, extreme death metal bands, the ones that wear on your ear to a point where it just becomes, at least for me, boring, are just like blast beat from the first second of the album starting to the last second. I love that shit and I love playing that shit. but there has to be hills and valleys, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And also the bands that know how to write hooks, like catchy choruses and shit. I mean, it's a pop music formula that can apply to anything. And if you apply that to extreme death metal, which it can be applied, it makes for way more interesting of a listen, and you don't get ear fatigue.
What about where do you stand on these guys nowadays who have kind of achieved a status in the business, your bands that are like out on the stadium tour right now, like Motley Crue, or you see Kiss out there doing it, playing with these click tracks or using like little cheats and little enhancements. Do you like that, or do you like the live? I've asked about a lot of musicians on here. Do you like the warts and all? Like, I don't want to be tricked. I'd rather hear the fuck ups and the imperfections. Or are you one of those guys who's just like, hey, Paul Stanley's 75 years old. Tommy Lee is almost in his 60s. If these guys need to use a couple of tricks behind the curtain or whatever, so be it.
It's hard. I definitely gravitate more toward the I want it's the imperfections that make the experience beautiful.
Right.
And I think that I really feel that way because, like, when you see me play live, my fills change a lot, except for when they're like fills that, lead that others in my band need and are more a part of the structure of the song. When I get to go crazy, I'm just improvising, man. I'm playing what I feel right then and there. And I think that fans, they might go to Air Drum Apart that's on the record, and it's not going to be that way. But I think it would be pretty cool, actually, to see someone it's all about being in the moment and how you're feeling right then. And so I've always felt that way. I mean, we've all seen bands that, not even bands that are older where they might need the help, but bands that just tend to play. And you might as well be listening to the album at home in your dark living room. Like I'd rather hear it be a little bit loose. Definitely.
Okay. Fair enough. So when you end up in EXHORDER, you talked about your experience with, jockeying for the position, and you ultimately got in Forbidden against a lot of other drummers. How do you make contact with the guys in EXHORDER? Do you audition? Do they reach out to you? How do you guys make that connection? Had you known the guys prior to?
I knew Jason, our bassist.
Okay.
We have a history of playing together. I did a little stint with Heathen just for the metal cruise one year. And Jason and I believe I'd met even before that. Memories failing me at the moment. We just hit it off from the bat. I mean, I love that dude. He's like my big brother. He's got my back for everything. And he was trying to put together just a little side project that was more of like not rock, but it definitely wasn't extreme metal. It was just more melodic, heavy, hooky shit. And it was with Vinny Labella. And Jason had known them because he was part of the other EXHORDER when they, reunion, but attempt at getting back together, I think like almost 10 years prior at that point. And so he was cool with Vinny already. He got Vinny on this side project called Year of the Tyrant, which had a short lifespan. And he asked me if I'd be interested. And of course, like him telling me that Vinny from EXHORDER, I was like I said, I'm a little kid all the time about this shit. So I was like, oh my God, let's do. So it kind of just came from that, Vinny and I and Jason started playing together. And then slowly the talk of EXHORDER possibly getting back together. And it made sense to use me for that because we'd already established a relationship playing together. So it kind of came out of the ashes of a little side project we had tried to put together before that.
Okay. Now I've got a few more things about the EXHORDER, the future of EXHORDER, some more personal things I like to talk to you about, but this is usually where I try to take a time out and I do something called throwing my guest in the furnace. Now, these are just random comparison questions. Right. I didn't have any hand in these at all. Okay. So don't kill the messenger here. These are just, do you pick this over this over this? But I have looked at the list that I have for you, and I have decided as judge, jury, and executioner which answers are right, because it's my show and I can do that. So I will grade you on this, and I may take opposition if one is just a glaring, awful fuck up. Okay.
All right. Shit.
Okay. So I'm gonna just start right off the bat here. Rather be blind or deaf?
Blind.
Really? Yeah, that would be bad as a musician, huh? To be deaf. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, we'll come back to let's see. Legless or armless? Oh, this is a horrible list for you.
Jesus Christ, really? All right, that one I got to think about for a second or two.
Okay.
Oh my God. Shit. I don't know where technology has taken us these days in terms of prosthetics and what I can do with them, but I'm gonna have to say, oh my God, dude, this hurts to even talk about. Oh God,
Yeah, I
Lego.
know. I selected two morbid ones right off the bat for you. Maybe it's because it generated these ones because you're probably in a scary band. Maybe I don't know.
I'm gonna say, okay, man, they're both just as bad. I'm gonna go with Legolas. Can't believe I'm
okay. Here it gets a little easier. Settle this one: Selma Hayek or J Lo?
Selma Hayek.
Elvis or Sinatra?
Sinatra.
Oh, okay. Geraldo or Springer? Both pieces of shit, right? I mean,
yeah. This is basically like, do I want my arms or my legs all over again?
Right.
I will take Geraldo.
Yeah. Strong mustache game out of Geraldo. That's important, though.
Very.
You know? You got a nice one, too. Slim Shady or Puff Daddy?
Slim Shady.
ZZ Top, BB King?
BB King.
Better name for Satan, Mephistopheles or Beelzebub?
Mephistopheles.
Yeah, I like Mephistopheles, too. You could call him Meth for short, you know? That's a nice one. I like that. Here's one. Both the same lead singer, New Orleans guys. Soylent Green or Goat Whore?
Soylent Green.
I'm
gonna get in trouble either way. I'm gonna have some.
No. I like that. Oh, here's one I think you might have touched on earlier, but I'll ask you anyway. The Clash or the Police?
I'm gonna go with the Police, and I'm gonna go with very, very early era Police when they were kind of punk rock in their own. Yeah.
Okay. Now this goes back to the mustache thing here. Better mustache. Obviously, this ended up on your list for a reason. Better mustache. David Crosby or Frank Zappa?
Oh shit. I'm going with Zappa, dude.
Zappa, yeah. Okay, and here's the most important one right here out of the two Van Halen errors. Careful how you answer this one because I do have a dog in this fight. Roth or Hagar?
Roth.
It's obvious, right?
Obvious, yeah.
Let me go back and see it. Let me go back and see how good SASHA HORN did. I think that, you know what? I like that you said BB King over ZZ Top. I love that. I love Mephistopheles. I love that you picked Soylent Green. I don't think you're going to take any flack at all here, buddy. I think you may have scored good. Selma Hayek was an important one.
Of course.
You did well, my friend. You did well. I think we might have agreed on everything, man. We might be kindred spirits here. Maybe I'll be the next. Maybe me and you should be forming a band.
Do you play?
No, but obviously you can tell that I am an extraordinary frontman and very easy on the eyes. Yeah.
Clearly you're the front man. So we got to, after this is over, we need to talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. I have a little project. Well, I'm one of the hardest working guys in show business, up and down the Eastern Seaboard, fronting numerous. But my thing is glam and sleaze. Right now, my big passion project is Love Sword. So if you'd like to audition for Love Sword,
Love Sword.
I've yet to find a drummer yet. All the guys I get on here either seem to be frontmen, which they're not taking the job from me, or the guitar players. Well, I don't think I've had a good drummer on the show in quite a while. The last drummer I think I had on was Perry from Violence. And I don't think I was in the I don't think Love Sword was on the map at that point. So you might have came at a good time, Sasha. You may have just employed yourself.
I gotta throw Perry out there as an influence when I was younger. I was and still am a huge Violence fan. And when we just played I think it was Elvis, a personal career highlight was that he was backstage watching me play that set. And when I came, I've always wanted to meet him. He introduced himself and told me that he was like, dude, that was amazing. I couldn't stop watching from behind.
Yeah. Oddly enough, I haven't been at the Pod Scum podcast very long. Actually doing it, I've got a lot of interviews done in the can because I wanted to be a little bit ahead before I started releasing them. So I've got a lot of stuff recorded, but I've really just in the last month and a half started to release them. And he was actually my inaugural episode. He was the first guy. Yeah, he was my first guest. Super nice guy. And you know what was cool about him? Very kind to give me some time while he was. Maybe I shouldn't say this if his boss ever found this, but he was actually on the clock driving truck and pulled over on the highway out there in California and did the interview with me.
That's killer. I mean, I don't think a lot of people would do that. That's awesome.
It's always nice. Yeah, it's always nice. I feel like I feel like that you want these guys to be, and maybe it's setting the bar high. You want these guys to be who you expect them to be. But Violence, I feel like in that pantheon of great Bay Area thrash bands has been much like Forbidden, who we talked about earlier, very criminally underrated.
Oh, criminally, keyword on criminally, my God. Yeah. I mean, they're oppressing the masses was like
masterpiece
album. And I thought for the scene too. I mean, that's his drumming on that album. Definitely had an influence on me as a child, and to this day, he's just amazing and a sweet guy.
I've said it before too. Easily one of the greatest, just pure names for a band. I mean, when you're slapping the name Violence on your albums, dude, checkmate. You know, I mean.
Exactly.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. I also talked to Bobby Gustafson, who's in that band. It just became the recent guitar player. And I said, you are very lucky. He was an Overkill, a great band name, Violence. And he also did a side project that he came up with the name for called Satan's Taint.
Oh, that's right. I heard of that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you talk about a hat trick right there. I mean, everything that guy steps into sounds badass. You know, I mean, of course, kudos to the great Bobby Gustafson. Plus, he was on I tell him all the time, he was on the important Overkill albums. Those first 4 are just, seminal albums in that genre.
My favorite. That was my era of loving Overkill and being.
Yeah, Years of Decay. I mean, he was just on, that was the last one that he was on, but he was on some killer ones. Now, EXHORDER, are we going to continue to get new music moving forward? And when? When will we get new music? More in the Southern Skies was 2019?
2019. That's correct.
Okay, so how close are we to any new EXHORDER music?
Yeah, definitely new music coming. I think I just kind of barely scratched the surface on earlier and throughout there was that we have a plethora of material. Kind of more at the point right now of I'd say more plethora of material, but it's a bag full of like material plus ideas, but we're fleshing them out right now. It's really nice to be able to pick and choose because you can be that much more confident that this next album is going to be just like killer from start to finish in terms of how the confidence that you have in, the finished product. So, we got to get in the studio by the end of the year. I mean, we've been just to demo some stuff out. We demo stuff out, listen to it in our cars, take it home, and then and twist and turn ideas and flip things around. But we're very close to getting in the studio to do this thing, and we're extremely excited because we've had now the opportunity with the lineup that we have and the way things have felt. I mean, we've been going into the garage and it's like Garage Days Revisited. Literally, we're going in there. We're like little kids jamming out, and pumping out these tunes, and the album will reflect that. And we're so excited.
Now, what direction, because I think I touched on this earlier, the landscape of the music business having changed so dramatically. I get people on here all the time and ask them like what direction as far as like the format that they put music out in. I'm getting people making a case for being a singles driven market. People are putting out small batches of killer tunes and going the EP route, the full length album. What route do you see EXHORDER going?
I mean, in terms of what's coming out next will be a full-length album. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about just putting out like a series of EPs, just like in a fun kind of way, and then putting a spin on it in a certain way. But I think what I'm appreciating about sort of something coming back around from the old days are shorter albums, because as you even kick this whole thing off with attention spans these days, I want to make an album that is the Rain and Blood, where you want to flip the tape and it's the whole album on the other side. And then I want an album that when you're done listening to it, you're like, fuck, I'm going to listen to that again because I want in its entirety, because I can't get enough of it. And I know we're all on the same page with that, my guys, at least. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but we're going for the full length, but I think we want to, I want to cut back on the time, the running time for the album. I would love to see.
So what is it do you think now that really is making it difficult, as you said, for people to really just like lock in and listen to an album and then want to run it back again? Is it that you see people half-assing material, or do you think do you attribute it more to just the attention span of the American public and people just don't want to take the time to just sit down and throw an album on like the old days and listen to it and experience it in its entirety?
I think it's both. I've definitely been in situations and talked with other people where like it's both things. I mean, God, if an album really, really holds your attention and has the ebb and the flow, and like I mentioned earlier, the hills and the valleys, I mean, whether you like it or not, you're going to make time to listen to that album. You know what I mean? And if you can't, in that sitting, you're going to go to work and you'll be like, I can't fucking wait to get home and listen to the rest of that album. So I think you got to put some blame on, you know, how you're structuring an album and how you're building that landscape. But also, I mean, everybody knows that attention spans suck now. I mean,
yeah,
that's part of it
too. To that
too. So I think like a really good way to come out and attack both those things is to write an amazing but shorter album. You know?
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because when I did speak to Perry Strickland, I kind of posed that same question to him, and that's kind of where he was at. And I think you're kind of attacking it from two different angles. You know, he was saying, like, you know, Violence seems to be really in the mindset of EPs, a small batch of well-crafted, all killer shit on there, 4 or 5 well-crafted, just kick-ass songs, which I guess if the songs were shorter, could be the same thing as an LP. You know what I mean? Just a nice tight batch, and you're keeping it to, you know, 30, 35 minutes, whatever, you know.
I mean, at that point, it's just kind of like, what do you want to, you know, what format do you want to slap on that? You want to call it an EP or really short full length? You know, maybe it's just the old school part of me, but like when I could not wait, and I've been waiting forever for Violence to put out what they recently put out, which was the EP, but it made I was kind of like, my first reaction was, oh, like,
where are the other 4 songs? Yeah.
I wanted like a short, full length, but shorter album. So I was like, I get a little let down by that. So I don't think I want to just start releasing batches of EPs as a routine, and maybe whet the appetite for the forthcoming full length. I don't know where they're at or how they're going to do that, but I'm in that camp.
Well, you know, as a guy who's 49 years old and grew up when you know, I was still going out and buying a lot of albums, the whole thing has changed for me, and that was part of the allure, because you know, you did open up those gatefolds, you know, and for me it was cassettes were really big when I was little, and you did read those liner notes and those lyrics, and you poured over that shit like it was the Bible, you know. I mean,
that's how we. I mean, I'm 46, so you know we're same, you know, place.
Yeah.
But like that was, you know, what we did. That's how we found out about the other bands. We would immediately, I mean, we put the tape in. If it sounded killer right off the bat, we're like, all right, let's see who they think, because those are the next. We're gonna make a list.
Yes,
right?
yes.
All that shit, you know.
Yeah, so, I know you'd look and be like, James Hetfield would like to thank the following bands, you know, for being so kick-ass. And then you'd be like, oh, these are the bands that he fucking digs. I'm going to go check out these bands, because if James Hetfield is giving them the stamp of approval, you know?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we did. I mean, yeah, totally. That's how we grew and widened our horizons, and the pool of bands just got bigger and bigger. We would just literally take those inlay slips with us to record stores or make a list based on that, and that was our shopping list. We're gonna buy, and if the covers look cool, then you know there was that too. Like, oh my god, I have to have this. Same thing. I come from school. Yeah.
As bands have to rely more and more on their live shows and their merch, which I'm hearing that same story from a lot of guys who are coming on here. You yourself, when you're not playing, are you a big like live music guy? Do you try to get out to shows?
You know, I think I do. Unfortunately, it's due kind of in part to where I'm currently living, which is Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's not much of a scene here, and I know through experience that when bands come up with their routing for their tours, a lot of times this is like a place to avoid. So it's getting better. There aren't that many shows here that I want to go out and see. If I were back home in Chicago, where we get so many, it's hard to choose, I would be going out more to see live music. You know, when I get back from these tours, I gotta chill for a little bit and get my lightning bolts back and my energy back. And then like, I really do want to, and then I start to like crave live music. I'm all about that, you know, I mean, how I became a lover of music, you know, in a sense.
When you take the stage as a player, or, you know, let's say hypothetically, there's people out there, who want to come and see EXHORDER when you do put out this next album and you tour. and they haven't seen you guys live prior, what would you say to entice someone to come and see EXHORDER that it is that you guys are able to deliver in the live setting?
That's an awesome question. I think there's several ingredients that go into an EXHORDER live show that make it worth saying. First of all, like how earlier I was saying that I prefer to play a show and have it be not like you're just listening to the album. Right. It's, we keep it tight, but loose in a good way. I do a lot of improv with fills. I mean, I think stuff like that keeps it interesting. You throw things into the mix. You're out there cooking and you're throwing some other ingredients in there. And I know I keep referencing like punk rock a lot, but Kyle also comes from that, and Jason also comes from that. Mm-hmm. So, and whether we like it or not, that comes out when they're playing. It's a great, wild, semi-unhinged good time, unhinged in the best way. I mean, you can feel our energy and our passion and how grateful we are to be out there. I know that sounds kind of cliche because bands are like, the fans made us who we are, we show it, but it really comes through. I mean, we came from skating and punk rock, and that's all like flying off the cuff, and like, there's grit there, but it's
right
and energized, man. It's lightning.
Now, when you look back at like what many in the metal community and rock journalists and stuff would certainly call a seminal album like Slaughter from the Vatican, what did you think like years back prior to playing with them? What was your opinion of EXHORDER? Have you always been a fan?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, like I was saying earlier, when getting the chance to play with bands that I grew up like air drumming along to in my bedroom, Slaughter in the Vatican was one of those albums. Like, I bought that. I still have the cassette that I bought back then, and it was one of those albums. I huge fan when I was a little kid. And just fucking air drum. I mean, I had my Walkman on, and everywhere I went, on the buses, trains, in the car, I was like, playing, tapping on everything, annoying people and that was one of the albums that I did it to. So,
okay. Outside of extreme music, though, what would be an album that maybe my audience would be surprised outside of extreme metal that you really wore out and played a lot back in the day? I hope you're not going to say something like Vanilla Ice. I don't think you're going to.
No,
I think you'll say something exponentially cooler than that. But what's something that's really something that brings you enjoyment that most people wouldn't think of that the drummer for EXHORDER would listen to?
I'll have to say a huge. I came from also a heavy pop background, so I'd say Susie and the Banshees' Peep Show album is to this day one of my all-time. Still gives me the chills and goosebumps when I listen to it because it's such a I came up from a lot of like industrial and goth and punk and that whole scene too, so that was a huge album for me. I'm gonna throw that one out there because that to this day, I mean, I'll go to the grave with that cassette.
But what about them as an artist, though? Like, I mean, is it the whole catalog of Susie and the Banshees? Now, like, what if you had to be like an artist whose stuff you've repeatedly listened to over the years, who's a go-to that's not extreme metal? Is there an artist out there like that album means a lot to you?
Yeah.
But are you speaking of all of Susie and the Banshees' whole wide array of work, or are you just talking about that album?
I love them as a whole.
Okay.
The feel, the sound. Now, like many bands that have been around for as long as they were around for, they went through different sounds and playing with, they progressed and matured, whatever you want to call it. They're definitely a band whose entire discography mean a lot to me. But now I'm trying to think of someone else. Oh man.
I know for me, and I put it out here before on my show, the neighborhood I grew up in, we were all had to be metalheads, obviously, and represent metal, but we kind of all gave each other a pass. It's very funny that our go-to guy was Prince. We all loved Prince. Prince was just such a huge part of my childhood. I think he's the only musician who ever passed away where I almost found my eyes welling up with tears. He was such a big part of, music becomes such a part of the soundtrack of your life. I know that sounds cliche because I've heard that before, but just made such an indelible mark when you just think of all the times in your room just through the 80s. And that guy was just really churning out, I mean, some of the biggest and greatest pop songs of all time.
I was a huge, in the 80s, I loved pop. I mean, I listened to Prince, Donna, God,
Yeah.
Michael, with the Faith album. I mean, and I was listening to that.
I listened to a lot of Duran Duran. I listened to a lot of them.
As to this day, I love that shit. It had such an impact on how I view songs. Like I said earlier, like that pop formula, you can put into any genre, man. And it really, it makes for a memorable listen,
right.
And, or memorable, I'm getting my words all screwed up. So, I mean, God, I'm trying to think of like Peter Gabriel. I mean, I loved Peter Gabriel when I was a kid. I still have those cassettes. Like his first solo album, I mean, that stuff was avant-garde, man. He did some crazy avant-garde artsy shit.
Right.
That's another artist who meant a lot to me and still does. The guy is fucking amazing.
Now, obviously, like a lot of musicians on here, I'm finding that, with a lot of bands that I love, the sad side to their story, and not that they're sad and they're telling it, but, obviously I'd love to see all the bands that I love, the guys flourishing, but a lot of them have to take day jobs. Are you able to sustain off of music, or do you have to take a day job as well?
I have to take a day job. It's not, I mean, the pandemic was a setback for every person doing any kind of job at all for the most part. I mean, obviously the music industry took a huge hit. That didn't help. But I mean, we're not, we all, at least the Exhorder guys, we all have families and other things that we do and have to be present for. So we're not one of those like road dog bands. We're not out on the road for, 3/4 of our year. If we were, this could be my main thing. But no, a day job is definitely a thing that I have to do as well.
Are you one of those guys who I'm trying to be better about this and discovering newer stuff through Apple Music, but are you a guy, because you are in this kind of that same age neighborhood as I am, are you a guy who gets stuck in a time warp and reverts back to a lot of music from the past? Or are there any new bands out there that have really grabbed your attention and are really exciting you and feel like they're kind of like taking the baton and running with it and keeping metal, whether it's extreme or just rock and roll? Are there any bands out there that just really have you excited?
Yeah, actually, for a while, I'm trying to get better about paying attention to what's coming out, because I was
me too.
I know, but it's like, that's exhausting to keep up with, man. And I
it is
that for a while, just because life didn't leave me much time for it. But like one band that I've been a fan of for a while, and then surprisingly just got to see them live for the first time, that they were, or I think that tour is over now, but Carcass, they were playing, opening up for Carcass. They were support, Creeping Death.
Okay. Yep.
And man, live, they fucking kill it. It's really nice to see a death metal band. Now they're doing like the throwback style death metal, more along the lines of like Death Massacre kind of shit. But their live show is like, they're like a hardcore band aesthetically playing old school death metal. I mean, they're like spin kicking and like, I mean, they're fucking throwing down, and that's why I go see live music. Yeah. They just fucking move around and look like you're so passionate about what you do. They're killing it. Fugitive, that's a very, very much a newer thing, which is actually, I don't know which members of Creeping Death, and then a member, my memory's failing me. It's sort of like a sort of super group, I guess you can say. I think they've like an EP, but they sound great too. I guess I'm really enjoying the throwback kind of stuff lately.
But I have heard you in the interview a couple of times make reference to death metal. In your opinion, greatest death metal band of all time?
Oh God. This is another one that's
who is the greatest? I guess when I've researched this on my own from a commercial album standpoint, it's been Cannibal Corpse, but I don't necessarily know that I love them the most. I've always been a huge Obituary fan. I guess it's another one of those kind of questions, but there have been some great death metal bands. And I know we talked earlier about music being, too heavy where it's unenjoyable. I don't think any of those bands fall into that category, but I mean, who's the GOAT in death metal?
Okay, right now I'm going to say, because it comes to mind, their last album I think is fucking amazing, Carcass.
There it is.
That's what I'm going with right now. Obviously, That's a very hard question to answer, but they still got it, dude. They still got it. And they really, they were, they took a risk on like Swan, even on Heartwork. They took a risk and flipped the script and didn't, came out sounding different, but man, they started a whole other world of death metal, a whole other sub. I mean, fuck. And that last album's amazing. I love it.
Are you familiar with the video of Glenn Danzig being punched out? And did it look like his self-defense left a little something to be desired? Because do you really push a guy as big as Danny Marianino from the legendary hardcore band Northside Kings, who I have had on here before? Doesn't really love to talk about it because it happened years ago, but he was kind enough, to let me bring it up a little bit at the end. But very unorthodox, and I'm no combat expert, but to push a guy that big and then put your hands to your side, I've never seen self-defense done that way. Are you familiar with the video?
It's funny because it's only kind of recently that someone brought it up and they were like, and they sent it to me, and I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this? But you don't push a guy like that.
In your travels, any interactions ever with the great Glenn Danzig?
It's funny because that actually finally just happened. We played Psycho Las Vegas, and I think it was like a little over a year ago. I mean, the pandemic really screwed up how time feels right now and forever. Yeah. But after all the stories of hearing about what kind of guy he is, and doesn't make him look like too much of a nice guy, obviously. I was with a friend, flew out to come see EXHORDER and to the whole festival. Always wanted to meet Danzig, and then he ends up standing right next to us with his entourage, whatever. Okay. Guards, whatever. And, he very nicely, was being a gentleman about it, asked if he could just like get an autograph. I think he wanted to get a photo with him. And one of his bodyguards was just like, he's in a meeting right now. He wasn't in a meeting. He was standing around talking to like his crew, not even like roadies. I don't think they were just like his people that he surrounds himself with. So I'm not that, that wasn't a total dick move, but it didn't surprise me. That's the only, and I saw that like from a stone's throw away. So I was a little bit bummed. I was like, really?
So he is kind of the pretentious dick of metal still, and he's still flying that flag and holding the championship belt firmly with his big, two meaty Danzig sweaty hands.
Sure as hell seems like it to me. It sure
seems like it. He may not have eaten his last punch, let's say, right? I mean, yeah, he may be cruising for another bruising. I mean,
Yes, I would throw my money on that. Absolutely.
Hopefully he doesn't butt heads with an angry Phil Anselmo anytime down the road. I don't know. There's guys out there, man, that you probably just don't seem like you want to cross. I don't know if Phil Anselmo's not the nicest guy in the world, but obviously he's left a little something to be desired in the past with some bad moments of error and judgments and some missteps.
It's I know Phil. It's different for me because Kyle and Phil they were childhood friends, like childhood. Right. Really tight friends, and they still are friends. And what I know about Phil is not what the public really knows about him. To me, right. He's like a really sweet dude. And it's funny because in Psycho Las Vegas, that was the first time that I actually got to meet Phil too. I thought it would have happened a lot sooner, just coming, being in the EXHORDER camp and stuff. And he introduced himself to me and stuck out his hand to shake my hand. I mean, he was a really nice guy,
Now, now because they're both, you play in a band that was originally based out of New Orleans, and because Pantera is a New Orleans band, what's your assessment of the playing of the late great Vinnie Paul? How did you find his drumming, and were you, even though you're in what the media tries to build up is a rival band, the arguing over who created the sound, what is your assessment of Pantera? Were you a fan?
It's weird. I wasn't very much, but then Far Beyond Driven came out, and it was hard to ignore that it even came out back then. I mean, that album skyrocketed like immediately. I picked up the CD. I was like, what's all the hype about? I tried to get into Cowboys from Hell. Okay. Vulgar Display of Power got me a little bit more hooked, but I wouldn't have called myself like an actual fan. But then Far Beyond Driven, that did it for me. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Now, I wasn't like a super fan. I really didn't follow through and pay attention to albums after. I guess it wasn't as grabby for me as
right.
Far Beyond Driven. Vinnie Paul is that dude is a super solid pocket player, and he played to the song. He didn't try. He played to the song, which is not an easy thing to do. Meaning he was a component in that machine. He was a cog in the gears in the best way, and he wrote like really catchy, hooky drum parts. And that's not easy to do. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think you hear it and you go, I don't get it. That's simple. It's like it's not that simple to come up with that.
Right.
There's a lot that goes behind that people don't understand, you know?
Right. Sure.
I thought he was great. He served Pantera better than anybody could have.
Yeah. When you talk about, working with EXHORDER, do you also have your toe, so to speak, dipped into any other projects? What other ventures are you in outside of EXHORDER? Are you one of those guys who puts all of his focus on the band that he's in, or are you a guy that likes to juggle a few different bands?
I used to be a guy that liked to juggle to a fault. So I remember in Chicago, I was in 5 bands at one time. I don't remember.
You were a band whore. SASHA HORN, you heard it here, was a band whore.
Oh my God. At that time, one of these, if you throw a stone, you got to hit something. So I'm gonna throw my sticks in every camp, and something's got to come out of it. But it drove me insane and took its toll on life in general. I like to have something else going, where at least one other thing, or really only one other thing at this point, because I don't want to spread myself too thin. And my main focus is EXHORDER, but it's because I come from, we've been talking music for a while now, and you can tell that I listen to so many other things, and I have all these other ways of expression that isn't metal. I mean, I've been working on a solo project for far too long now. That's more along the lines of like Fugazi, Jimmy Eat World, and so many other bands I could throw in there, but it's obviously not a metal thing at all. So it would be hard for me to do just one thing, but simply because I love so many other things. I mean, I play guitar and I write as well. So obviously I got to have an outlet for that too. And, that's not to trail too much, but that's the wonderful thing with EXHORDER and what the lineup that we have now is we're all writing together. I mean, I'm coming up with riffs too, and we're piecing things together. It's truly a collaborative effort like no other that I've ever experienced.
So the creative process with EXHORDER is not just one guy kind of bringing lyrics. You're really doing it by committee, and it's a very collaborative experience. Is that how you guys create? There's nobody kind of domineering the whole process?
Oh, no. And I think it kind of has always been that way, which is why Kyle and Jason and I, and Pat, he's newer into the fold. So, and we've been going at this writing process for a while now. So, it's sort of the point where hey, if Pat wants to come in, we're welcoming him with open arms into the writing process. So we'll see where that goes, because we're still in that process. But that's why Jason and Kyle and I, we get in that garage and we're writing. We're literally like little kids smiling and laughing. I mean, we feel like we're 14, 15, 16 years old again. We're doing it like a band's supposed to do it. And never felt to us before. So it truly is collaborative. I mean, Kyle, he writes the lyrics, and he'll do that at home on, his own time, but he'll bring it to us as a group, and where everybody's free to chime in on anything and we all put in their 2 cents, because we all take the constructive criticism so well. No one's ever defensive about it. I mean, we look forward to it.
Right. As tough as it is to make music in the industry right now, though, even though you enjoy playing a certain style of music and you have genres that you like and that are in your, for lack of a better term, in your comfort zone, is there a gig though? Is there any such thing right now? Is like a gig, if it was a gig that could really set you up, financially, is the music business at the point where you would take a gig even if you felt like, that might not be my favorite type of music, but because how guys used to be very stringent, I mean, I play punk and I only play punk. But if you were to receive a call to play for somebody and you can leave that open to interpretation, is a gig nowadays? Do you trade in, your commitment to a specific style for the paycheck?
That's another really good question, because I feel like, when I was
say Bruce Springsteen calls you up tomorrow and says, "Hey, I need a drummer for the E Street Band." I mean,
I would take it. That's the thing, though. That's another really a plus side to enjoying so many different kinds of music is I for whatever reason I throw this out there sometimes because it's such a polar opposite to EXHORDER. But if Taylor Swift's people got a hold of me and we're, hey, we need a drummer for this tour, or we need a studio drummer. I mean, I love Taylor Swift. So I would do that in a heartbeat. Now, I have to also say that as long as it didn't interfere with EXHORDER, right. Because that's my heart and my soul. But
right.
Dude, I really would. I mean,
but I'm sure you remember, you're from an era the same as me. I'm sure you remember when back in the day, at least here in my region of upstate New York, where I grew up, you know what I mean? If you were to kind of switch sides like that, and it's funny, I talked about this on other episodes, you were the dreaded poser. God forbid you better not be in an extreme metal band and go play in this, for this pop diva over here, man. You can't do that. It's almost sacrilegious, I
mean, coming from, again, like we grew up in the same era, like I was going to say, like if the 14-year-old heard me say what I just say, they would be like,
he'd kick your ass.
Impose.
Yeah.
Because how we would talk about it too. But it's really, not only is it a different, I'm not going to say the game is different. It is, but I don't know if that applies to this particular situation. But like, it's different when you're, our age, and if you choose to do music for your career, then you realize, man, I got a 9-year-old daughter. Life happens, and I've been lucky enough to be able to have this, be a professional musician and have it, take care of a lot of the life things. I would jump at the chance for someone to be, hey, you seem talented enough where I want you to be in on this, and we will provide a great paycheck for you.
Right.
And it just so happens that I love so many different kinds of music that it wouldn't just be a paycheck, because I would genuinely enjoy doing that. I'm lucky in that.
Are you one of these guys who's like, and I'm sure, by the way you're talking about music, I'm sure that you are, but are you one of these kind of guys who's like I'm going to be up on that stage drumming till the proverbial wheels fall off, or have you ever sat down and thought about like a potential life after music, and or thought about a time when I may stop playing? Or is it kind of just one of those play it by ear, I'll do it for as long as I can? Have you put any forethought into any of that?
It's hard not to. I mean, these days, no, but because I grew up in the doing music at such an early age, man. I was playing drums before I could, speak words, really. I mean,
right.
So it's like, this is the path that I've always been on, for better or for worse, because let me tell you, man, dedicating a life to music will take its toll on your financial situation, your relationships, every fucking thing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse, but I don't know any other reason other than being the best father to my daughter that I can be. I don't know any other reason for being on this planet. So it's not even a question. I'm going to be doing this until I can't have full function in my body anymore. And it would be literally physically impossible. It's all I know. It's how I'm wired. It's in my blood.
Well, if I'm looking back, man, you did pick Legless, did you not? So, should that come to fruition, and I'm not hoping that it does by any means, Sasha, but that could put a little damper on the drumming.
Yes, it definitely could. I mean, what's his face from Def Leppard has always given us hope that if anything horrible should happen, they'll continue.
Now, do you, as a drummer, it's funny that you brought that up. As a drummer, do you look at a guy that's still able to persevere, losing a goddamn arm as a drummer, and just think, wow, are you blown away? I know it's not the type of or genre of music that you play, but obviously, as you said, you're a fan of a lot of different types of genres. I mean, what is your view like when you see this guy came back and is drumming with one goddamn arm?
It's so funny that you even brought that up, because my daughter, we were talking just like literally, 2 days ago. Apparently, this is so like Simpsons episode. Apparently, driver on her school bus is a metalhead, and has been like playing. He'll play stuff for the kids sometimes. I don't. Hopefully, he doesn't get in trouble for that. It's not like I'm naming anything specific. I think he's cool as hell for doing it.
Yeah.
My daughter was like, yeah, and he played this band and said that the drummer like got into a car accident and lost his arm, and I was like, yeah, that's Def Leppard. And so we started talking about it. She thought that was amazing. And I said, I think that's amazing too. And so to answer your question, that is like truly an inspiration. I mean, how could that not be? If a drummer loses his arm and their whole band decides that, no, there's no one else for this job but him, and we're going to see this through, and he's going to be our drummer when he is able to do it again and continues on with the career with a missing arm. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Inspiration, it is.
Now, Okay, now now we can get down to the brass tacks of business and drumming for Love Sword. I'm going to tell you, Sasha, it's not going to be easy. First of all, man, there may be a couple of things required. As you can see, that I have a front name of Rex Ruger at the bottom of the screen. That's about as glam as it gets because I spell it with 3 X's. That's important in the glam and sleaze world. So there might be a couple of requirements. And obviously you're playing and your resume is good. Maybe dyeing the hair blonde and becoming SASHA Horny.
Yes. Hey, man. I mean, I've been called SASHA Horny since like kindergarten. So
okay. So this is nothing new for you then. I mean, you certainly got to glam it up a little bit, but I mean, I certainly think we could make it work. I mean, and it could be the big, and it could be the big payoff. Why not? We'll just go for the whole. We'll go for the whole Bon Jovi thing.
I'll do anything for a paycheck. I'm your guy.
Those guys are living on Easy Street, right? I mean, nowadays that's the move. I mean, you got to sell out and pimp yourself out a little bit. It's not what it once was.
Hashtag poser life, man. Let's do it.
Is it kind of scary though to think though that like, and I brought this up to other musicians. You seem so passionate about music. Did you ever think you'd live to see the day when we might actually see the death of the physical product? Obviously, there's been a spike in the popularity of vinyl, which could be perceived as a fad. But if that dies out, no one's going to go out and buy physical stuff. Our cell phones have essentially become our stereos and our pathway into music.
No, and I think that has a lot to do with people not being able to sit through an entire album or only looking for singles anymore. I kind of, it's funny because I feel like at this point, vinyl is not a fad. I think vinyl is back for good.
You think it's here to stay?
So I also think, and no one agrees with me, I also think just because of, nostalgia is a thing, everything comes full circle. I feel like CDs are going to boom again at some point. Maybe not like boom, but I feel like getting back into buying CDs is going to be like this cool thing because like it reminds us of the 90s or early 2000s or whatever.
Right. Now, I've always had this musical theory here, man, that I think that Stevie Wonder is faking being blind. Where do you stand on that theory?
Man, if he had been, that's fucking genius. And he got so long. Then he's even more of a genius because he
started when he was a very young child. And here's the thing that I'm seeing a lot when me and my wife sit down and watch a show, and I don't know where you stand on this, but when you sit down and watch a show like America's Got Talent, or that's the one I watch the most, but even having seen like The Voice or American Idol, do you and I don't know if you watch these shows or not, but do you ever notice that sometimes these people are able to propel themselves along in these competitions if they have some talent, but they also can rely on a very touching or sad, sappy kind of story?
I don't watch these shows, but I've seen them enough in their histories that I know that. You know, if the people out there judging them are human, man, I definitely think that plays into it. I'm not saying that it plays the largest part into it, but who doesn't love a good, story or like, of course it tugs at the heartstrings.
Yeah. Well, I'm going on Apple Music like a lot, and like the thing I do like about Apple Music is you'll search for a band, but when you scroll the bottom of the page, they'll give you suggestions for other bands that you might like. So I have discovered some some music that way. But it still just doesn't seem right. I think it just has something to do with with the era that we grew up in. It's never really going to seem right to me to listen to music that way.
No, it's become such a part. Like I'm all about Spotify. I know people, the devil. I mean, I love it, man. My whole library. I've had it for so long. They got me right where they want me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep subscribing. I have the premium account. But what's weird is for whatever reason, it's really hard for me to listen to a full album on there, and it's all on me. I create playlists and I shuffle them, and I end up doing that like all the time to the point where I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Yeah. So that's why I love that vinyl's here again, because I'll throw an album on and I'll sit there and listen to the whole thing. So I don't know why it is that my phone equals ADHD with music for whatever fucking reason. Yeah. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with where music's gone. The convenience of it is it's great, but it also sucks at the same time. I
So we reviewed a lot here, man. I think we've gotten to the Stevie Wonder shit. You did pretty well on the test. You know, we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone to some random fucking places. I'm not sure if I'm any more or less confused than I was when we started this whole soapbox. But I feel like we got somewhere because ultimately, man, I feel like we struck up the potential for a future collaboration. And
there you go.
I'm not finding a lot of drummers that I'm going to give the stamp of approval for Love Sword. So I mean, start practicing your glam / sleaze / 80s metal fills. And I want more. I want less Exhorder and more Ricky Rocket.
I can do it, man. I can do it. I'm with you.
You can do Ricky Rocket. All right. So I think we might have a future. So we got to go down and that hair might have to be blonde. There may or may not have to be a little makeup involved. And SASHA Horny is a must.
I'm all about it.
It's got to be glammy. I mean, Love Sword is kind of like I don't know if you'd call it a double entendre, but you get the meaning there, though. I mean, in the glam sleaze world, the girls are begging for the Love Sword.
Yeah.
And pretty soon my backdrop is going to be, I'm waiting for it to come from eBay. Right now, as you can see, my backdrop is a lot of my wife's strawberry shortcake shit and toys and stuff. But pretty soon, I'm waiting for it to come in the mail, will be the David Lee Roth poster. And it is pretty provocative. Chest hair is involved. He's look like he's having a good hair day. And that's going to be, he's going to be looking down on me, so to speak.
I can't, you're going to have me back on at some point.
I will.
Enough to talk about just so I can be a part of that room when it gets the redo, man. I would love.
Well, right now I've got lawyers working on like the DNA part of the testing. I'm pretty sure that because he has no children, David Lee Roth,
or so
he says. That's right. You hit the nail right in the head.
Yeah,
you're right. You said a mouthful right here, man. I'm glad you're Team Rex, man, because a man should step up those responsibilities. And I've said it before. I'm not asking for a lot, but David Lee Roth has done pretty well. Me and my wife work in healthcare. We're both nurses, so we do okay or whatever. But I mean, come on, man. David Lee Roth has got that 1984 money, that jump money, that
jump money, man. I hear you.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I mean, it's undeniable, isn't it, that I'm the son of glam?
Spitting image. I said, dude, I'm not in denial about this whatsoever.
All right, do me a favor. This is going to be the icing on the cake. Okay, close your eyes for a minute.
Okay.
Ain't talking about love. Love is right into the core.
Oh my! Where am I? Oh my God!
Where are you? Right. Just admit for a minute when you closed your eyes, you thought that you were talking to David Lee Roth on the other side of this computer.
It did. I legitimately, dude.
Man, I'm telling you, man. I found a kindred spirit, man. Me and you are brothers for life. I love what you're doing, man. I love that you're an Exhorder, man. They're a better band for it, man. I wish you guys all the luck in the world, man. We can't wait for the next album. So get it out to us, please. I appreciate you being so generous with your time.
Having me on, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, our signals got crossed a couple times about, hey, just like with everybody, man. Like you said it before, real life takes over, man. But we made it happen.
Yep.
I really appreciate it, man. We will definitely do it again. I had a blast talking to you, man. Thank you so much, man. SASHA Horn from Exhorder, man. This guy will drum your fucking face off. All he does is make face melters.
Melt faces.
SASHA, I love you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Got it, homie.
I really appreciate it, bro. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Now we'll watch him get off and we'll talk bad about him behind his back. I'm just kidding, SASHA. I would never do that. You can tune in. I will send you the link to this episode. I will. You will hang up, and then I will continue to sing your praises for another minute or two, and then I get rid of everybody.
Protocol is: am I supposed to hang up, or are you pressing?
Yeah,
stop?
Hang up. Yeah. Absolutely, you can hang up on me. Yes, absolutely, brother. Thank you so much again, buddy. Thank you. There he is, everybody. The great SASHA Horn, drummer extraordinaire for the great New Orleans-based band Exhorder. You know him from Landmark album many years ago, Slaughter in the Vatican. The recent was 2019's Mourn the Southern Skies. They are a fucking powerhouse, and they were making that sound before the mighty Pantera. So let's give these guys their flowers, man. Put some respect on their name, man. Them dudes are out there doing it. Exhorder. Go check him out. Thank you so much, SASHA Horn, for joining us. I really appreciate it, man. Generous with his time. Go check him out. Support everything he does. See you next time on Pod Scum, and remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.